So this video is going to focus on creating a ReactJS application using Webpack, which is a module bundler. And so it's going to be a really simple app, just to show you the basics of how to set up the environment. Now if you go over to the React website, if you click on Get Started and then Installation, so they have a tool here. If you click Create New App, you install this tool globally, and it basically creates a base template for a React app. And this tool is really popular right now. A lot of people are using it to just quickly inject a React.js application. But what I'm going to do is create it from scratch, because I've seen a lot of videos out there that are outdated with the latest version, and they can get pretty confusing. So we're going to go ahead and create it from scratch. So you will need Node.js installed. All right, and we're going to start off with npm init, and I'm just going to use all the default settings. Okay, then we're going to start off by setting up Webpack. So you just want to go to webpack.github.io, and then go to the latest version and click documentation. Then just click getting started. Alright, so we'll just go ahead and install Webpack. And actually we'll just go to installation and use this code right here. And we'll use save dev because we don't need to save this to the production environment, but just development. Okay, and so the way this works is, well, let's go ahead and go into our code editor, and what I'm going to do is create a few folders here. I'm going to create one called dist, one called source, and actually I'm going to delete this dist. And then inside of source, I'm going to create a folder called components, and then a file entry.js, and then another one test.js. Okay. So now the way Webpack works is it basically bundles all the types of files that you want it to. So you can do JavaScript, you can do CSS, whatever you want, and it bundles it into a production ready folder. Okay, so let's go ahead and put something in our entry folder just for testing purposes. So we'll say console, this is a test. And so what you'll do is in the console, whoops. Okay, so we'll just type in Webpack, and then the entry file, that's the file we would like to bundle, which is going to be the one we just created, and then where we would like the output. So I'm going to say the dist folder, and the file, I'm going to name it bundle.js. So it's going to take this, bundle it, and output it here. We'll just hit enter on that. And then if we go back to the editor, you'll see a new folder here, and here's our bundle. Now, if we just search for the file we just created, you'll find it right here, console log. This is a test. Okay. Now let's try something else. In the test file, I'm going to say hello. Actually, I'll just create a variable here. Okay. Then here in the entry file, I'm going to call that file by saying require test.js. Now I'm going to run Webpack again. Okay. Now if you go back to the editor and go to your new bundled file, I'm going to search for that. And you'll see right here, hello world. Now, something that we can do rather than having to specify the location like this, because that's a lot to type out, what we can do is create a configuration file that just does that for us. And the way you do that is back over on the Webpack website, they have a method of doing it. You just click here, getting started, and then using Webpack with a config. Okay. And we'll just copy this entire, and it tells you right here, you just create the file webpack.config.js, and so then when you run Webpack, it will know to find that file. So let's go ahead and create that in the root. Say webpack.config.js. Then I'll just paste all of that in here. And so here's our entry file, the one we were typing in the terminal. So we'll just specify here that it's in the source folder and it's the entry file. And then our output is going to be bundle, which that's what we were specifying in the terminal, and the dist folder is already specified for us. Okay. So now let's go ahead and delete the dist folder to make sure this is working properly. And so this time I'm just going to type in Webpack, no entry and output. And you see there we got 2 files that were bundled. And if we go back, here is our new dist folder and our bundle, and I'm just going to do a quick search to find that. There we go. And one other thing that I want to show you, if you go back over to the test file, we can actually use ES6, the latest JavaScript syntax. You'll see here we did const hello world. And then when we go bundle it, if you go back over to the bundle, and we search for that variable, you'll see here that it's still const, right? Now that's a problem because some of the older browsers don't support the latest ES6. So what we'll have to do is use something to change this to the older version of JavaScript, the widely supported version, right? And so we use something in Webpack called a loader. Okay, and so what we'll do, if you scroll up to the top here, you want to click documentation and then click loaders and then click Babel Loader. Now Babel is a transpiler that will convert that for us, okay? So here we have all the installation directions and then how to use it. So I'm just going to put these 2 windows next, side by side, so I can go ahead and do that. And I'm going to go ahead and install it. So npm install, and we got Babel Loader, Babel Core, and then we're actually not going to need this preset right here for the environment. We're not going to set that up right now. And then we're just going to save it as a development dependency. Okay. And so now we can go over to our code editor and configure this. So go into the Webpack config file, and right after the output, create a module and then add rules, which is an array of objects, and we're going to add test. Now what this is right here is a JavaScript regular expression. And so what that is basically saying is, hey, look for all files that end with .js. Okay. And we need to specify exclude so that we don't also grab all the JavaScript files inside of our node modules, which contains all the packages we install. Actually, we don't need the parentheses. We can just say node modules. And then use specify loader Babel Loader. And then we're not going to need this options part for the presets. Okay, and to work with ES6, we also need to implement a preset for Babel. And you can do that by going back to the React site and hitting add React to an existing application. And it tells you right here everything that we're going to be needing, and one of the presets is the one that we'll need, which is this one, the ES2 2015. So if we just click that, we can go ahead and install that. Right, so we'll say sudo npm install Babel CLI, then Babel preset ES 2015. Then we'll save this to development dependencies. Okay, then it tells you right here to create a Babel RC file and add this preset configuration. So let's go ahead and do that. So if you scroll down, you can actually just copy this JSON version of it. And so we'll create the new file here, .babelrc, and then just paste that in there. Okay. And so anytime that we inject new presets, this is where we'll add that. Okay. So since we're here already, what we'll do is we'll actually grab the React preset as well. So let's go back to the React page and grab that. Let's see. Okay, right here, the Babel preset React. So we'll need to install that as well. So npm install Babel preset React. Okay. I think you can actually click on that. Yeah, basically what we just did. And then same thing. We don't have to actually copy that. We can just inject that into the array. So we'll say React. Okay, there we go. Now we have ES6 syntax preset and React preset. Okay, so now let's give this a test and see if it works out. Close that. Go back to our console. And we'll say Webpack. Okay, now if this worked properly, you'll notice in your bundle file, we have our old JavaScript syntax here, the supported one, var, even though in our file we're using const, right? So that's our quick way to transpile that, and you'll need that for React. Okay, so I just want to show you another quick thing. Rather than continuously doing this, what you can do is type in -- watch, and what that'll do is it'll build every single time that you make a change. So let's say I say hello David. Once I hit save, if you go back to the console, you'll see that it rebuilt it, and it's going to keep doing that every single time that you make a change, right? Now that we have that, what I want to do is I want to build my index page. So I'm just going to, in the dist folder, I'm going to create index.html, and I'm just going to type in some basic HTML here. Oops. Okay, so now what we need to do is start up a server so we can load that HTML file. Now Webpack actually has a tool for this that we can use called the Webpack Development Server. So if you go back over to the whoops, close the wrong one. If you click down at the bottom here where it says development, what we'll need is the dev server. So if you click right here, Webpack dev server, we're going to go ahead and install that. So as you see right here, it tells you to add bundle to scripts in the index. So we'll go ahead and do that. Go back into our index, and down here at the bottom, I'll just add a script. I'll say bundle.js. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and run these this installation right here. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this build, and then I'm going to say sudo npm install webpack dev server save dev. Okay. Once that's done, what we'll do is run this to open it. But before we do that, I'm going to add some configuration. So if you go down here to the bottom, I believe it's here at dev server documentation. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll copy this, and we're going to add this to the config file, the configuration file, down here at the bottom after modules. Okay, and so content base just tells you where the index is going to be, where all the files are that you're loading into the server. We don't need this. And then whatever port we want to use, 9000 is fine, sure, why not? So if you go back to the previous page, you'll see here, this is what we'll use to start up the server. So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll say webpack dev server -- open. Okay, and it should automatically open the browser for you. Except mine opened up Firefox for some reason, and I sure as hell don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close these out. And you'll see right here in the console, here is our file. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to put this to the side and open up the, I'm going to show you what happens when you edit the files. So I'm going to go into the entry file. I'm gonna change this to hello David. Hit save, and you'll see there it automatically refreshes. And what we can do is actually, we don't need this test file anymore, so I'm going to delete that. Now you'll notice if you go back over to the index, if we edit this, say, it doesn't automatically update. We have to actually hit refresh. Okay, so we can actually change that too. If you go back over to the entry, all you need to do is just use require, but on the index page, right? So we'll say dist index file and hit save on that. Now you'll see you get a parsing error here. And it tells you right here you need a proper loader. Okay, so just like we used for our JavaScript file here, we need one also for all our HTML. And there's lots of them out there. We'll just type in HTML loader, and you can just click on this one. Okay, and bring up the console, and I'm going to go ahead and npm install HTML loader, save to development. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to add that loader. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just copy the one we used before. Whoops. And then we'll just change this to HTML and remove this exclusion and change this to HTML loader. So let's go ahead and run Webpack dev server. All right. And now I can go back and hit refresh on this. And so now let's see if this gets updated when I make a change to the HTML page. Okay. And I'll just make a change here. And you'll see right here it was updated. We don't need to hit refresh. Okay, so at this point we're ready to go ahead and implement the React. And before I do that, I'm going to inject some Bootstrap. And so just hit getting started here. Then I'll copy the JavaScript here and paste that. Make it big here so you can see. Okay. And then we also need jQuery. So we'll search jQuery CDN. And we'll just copy this one. And make sure you do that above the Bootstrap. Hit save on that. And then lastly, we need to grab the CSS. Instead of using the one from the Bootstrap website, we're going to use Bootswatch, which is basically Bootstrap, but what they've done is they've modified the look of all the layouts, but you use the exact same syntax that you would in Bootstrap. So we're going to use this layout right here, the paper layout. And if you hit Control U or right click and hit View Source, we can just copy their CSS. So we'll just copy this right here and go back over and paste this under title and then paste it in there. Now once you hit save, you should notice that see, where's my server here? Alright, and there you go. You can see there we have our new font from the new layout. So now we're ready to get started with ReactJS. Actually, let me pull that back up, so we're going to need that. Okay, and I'm going to click over here, Installation, Add to Existing App. Okay, so we need to install these two right here, React and React DOM, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to open a new window. Bring that up really quick. We'll say npm install React and React DOM save. Okay, let's go back over to our text editor. We can close that. We're going to create a new file in the source folder called app.js, and this is going to be the main React application. And so what we'll need to do is import these two right here. Actually, we can just grab this whole file, and then we'll paste that in here. Okay, now, so what this is React DOM renders whatever we want into an element, right? And so we're saying inject this JSX into the element that has the ID of root. Okay, so JSX is basically JavaScript used, or HTML used inside of JavaScript. Okay, now normally this wouldn't work and wouldn't you need a transpiler. That's why we're using Babel. If you go back to the presets, we're using the React one. And what that does is it takes JSX and it converts it over to regular JavaScript so that the browser can interpret it. Okay, so all we need to do is create this element here, right? So let's go ahead and create that. But I'm actually going to change this to React container. Okay, so let's go into our index and add that in there. And right underneath hello world, we'll just add a div. Instead of class, we'll do ID React container. Okay. Now, in order to pull this into our application, we need to go back over to the entry file and pull that in. So we'll say require app.js file. Okay. Now let's see if it worked. If you go back over to the application, here's our hello world. I'm going to take off the first one I created in the index just so it's not as confusing. All right, there you go. And so we have our React working here in the browser. Next, what I want to do is create my first component. So I'm going to create a component called Nav Bar. It's going to have our Nav Bar, obviously. So let me grab this and put it to the side and go back over to the React website. Now, if you go over to, let's see where it's at, components, it shows you right here how to create one. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. First, we're going to need to import React, and you can see it's being used right here, so we'll need to import that. So we'll say import React from React library, and then class, and we'll name this Nav Bar extends React.component. Okay, then we'll say render, and we're going to return something. So for right now, I'm going to return just a header and some text, or h1 and some text. Now, what you want to do is use parentheses, because even though they don't use it in this example, the reason they don't is because it's just one line, and if you just use one line, you don't have to. But if you have multiple divs and your code is broken up to many lines, what you'll need to do is use parentheses so that it can properly render that. So I'll go ahead and create an h1 tag here. I'll say nav bar test. Now, in order to access this in our application, we need to export it. And there's a couple ways to do that, but the easiest way is you just type in export class, and that exports it out. So now we can go into our main application and import it. So we'll say import nav bar from, and then we grab that file, which is components navbar.js. And we don't need the .js there. Okay, and let me make this big so it's a little bit easier to read. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this component and I'm going to inject it into the application. And the way you do that is I'm going to leave this hello world there. But what you have to do is, if you have more than one line, you have to create a div. And so I'm going to leave that hello world there, but beneath it, I'm going to add the nav bar. And the way you do that is just type in nav bar and close out the element like that. Okay. And actually, I just realized this is not supposed to be title case. Let me fix that, or I mean camel case. So hit save there, and you should see the Hello World H1 header, H1 tag, and the Nav Bar test. Okay. So now we can go ahead and add our actual Nav Bar. So I'm going to go back over to the Bootstrap website, and I'm going to go to the examples here, and I'm going to steal their Nav Bar, which is this one right here. So what I'm going to do is start up a new file so that I can type my code here. And this is the Nav Bar, and I'm just going to delete the comments here. And so inside of React, in JSX you can't use class, you have to use class name. So we'll replace all the class with class name. Okay, there we go. Instead of Bootstrap theme, should change this to ReactJS. Okay, and now I'm ready to paste this into the Nav Bar. So as I was saying before, you have to make sure when you paste this in here that everything is within one tag dimension. So let me show you really quick what I mean. So this right here wouldn't work because you have two of the same level here, right? But what you could do is put this inside of one div so that there's only one outer layer. Okay. Now our Nav Bar only has one outer layer. If you look at it, this one is the outer one. There's no other outer layers after that. Okay. So I'm going to hit save on that, and if you go back over to the browser, you'll see here is our navigation. Now the next thing that I want to do is I want to create a component for this Jumbotron here. So I'm just going to grab that. Same thing, I'm going to go back over to the HTML file just so that I can play with this and change this to class name. Okay, and I'm going to create another component. I'm going to name it jumbotron.js and import React, and then create my class here. I'm going to name it Jumbotron. Then paste that in here. Then I'm going to go back over to the main app and import it. Alright, and I'm actually going to get rid of this hello world. I don't need that anymore. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to leave this alone for right now, and I'm going to change this to React Nav and create a whole nother one right here, react-dom.render, and I'm going to do Jumbotron. And for this one I'll do React Container. So now let me just go back over to the index and create that other div that I just created. So this React Container, I'm going to actually put it in a Bootstrap div of container, and then above that I'm going to have my navigation. The reason I'm doing that is because I don't want my navigation to conflict with this container. I want to have the navigation displayed on every single page. Okay, so now if we go back over to the website, you'll see here is our Jumbotron component. So now we're ready to build some other things. And so I'm going to create a few other components. I'm going to create a home component, an about, and a contact. Then I'm going to go back over to the navigation and change these accordingly. So we have our home, about, contact, and I don't actually need this drop down menu here. Okay, and what I'll do is I'm actually going to grab this Jumbotron and copy it because these are going to be a little similar. Just change this to contact. Instead, I'm going to change this to say contact page, the class name of page header, and get rid of this. Then I'm just going to put some dummy text in here. Now this is what I was saying before. You see how the H1 and the paragraph are on the same level? If I didn't have this outer div, then this would crash and it wouldn't work. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to use it in the about as well as the home. And then I'm just going to import all of these. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to build the Reactor Router. That way we have navigation actually working here. Okay, we can get rid of this, and what I want to do is search for Reactor Router. And so a lot of this stuff I know how to do out of memory, but I just want to show you where I'm getting this. That way you have a point of reference rather than having to remember everything. So I'll just click Web here. Now, bear with me, I realize that the text here is very, very small. So what we'll do, I'm going to click this first link here because we're going to need to install something with Node, which is this right here. And then we're going to import this. Okay. So I'm going to go back over to my console and npm install React Router DOM. Save. Okay, and then back over on the website, let me just copy this. And actually we can just go back to the original website. And what you do is scroll down and click over here where it says hash router. And then we can grab this right here. And it shows you a demonstration there on how to do it. So I'm just going to paste that here. Now I'm just going to make some minor adjustments to this. For hash router, I'm just going to type in as router. And then I'm also going to import route. Now I'm going to grab this same thing and I'm going to paste it in the navigation component because we're going to use it here too. But we're actually going to use link. Now back on the website, I know you can't see this, but on the left side here it shows you how to create links. And so that's why we're pulling that in here. Anyway, back to the main configuration. What I'm going to do is right here, let me bring this down. What I'm going to do is actually put this inside of a div because I'm going to have multiple levels here. I'm going to keep the Jumbotron up on every page, but what I'm going to do is type in route and then exact path and then the component that I want to render when users go to the exact path of the home page. So I'm going to use the home component and then close this tag. And then actually I just remembered actually I have to put this inside of the router tag and then inside of another div tag. Okay, so this comes from up here, right? We're actually calling hash router, and because of the way the router works, we actually have to put it inside of a div as well. Okay, so we'll create another route and we'll say path about, and then we'll get the component about. And then lastly, we'll do the contact page. Okay, and Let me go ahead and fix this up a bit. There we go. Okay, now let's see if this works. Let's go back over to the main site. Now you should see the home page because we're on the default route, right? We're on the home page route. Now if you type in about, there's our about route, contact, and there's our contact page, okay? So now what we need to do though is give functionality to this links. So if you remember back over in the Nav Bar component, I already imported the router as well as links, okay? So what we'll do is we actually need to take this entire navigation menu and then also enclose it in the same, just like we did in the main application where we had it inside of a router. So we'll do that as well. Okay, and then we'll go over here to the links, and I'll start off with this one. We don't need, actually, so I'm gonna keep that up there, but so the new link is gonna look like this. It's gonna be link uppercase to, and then the path. So we'll say default, and then I'm gonna add that name, the class back. So Navbar brand ReactJS. Then I can delete this one here. Okay, now let me just do that with the rest of these. Actually, this should be just like that. All right, let's hit save on that and check that out. So if you click home, you should get home, about, contact, and then back to home. Okay, so that is how you create routes with ReactJS. Now, something I forgot to mention, this React Router was actually not created by the ReactJS team. It was created by the ReactJS community, and that's why it's not part of the ReactJS website and their documentation. Now I will say it's still a pretty cool feature to know, but ReactJS really is all about creating user interfaces, so you won't necessarily be using it in this way, but I just wanted to demonstrate it in case that you do want to use it in your application. And so before we end this tutorial, I wanted to show you a couple other popular loaders that are used with Webpack. So I'm going to create a folder inside of the source folder. Name it assets, inside of there JS, and also SCSS. So I'm going to create a script.js file here, and I'm just going to create a variable here, a const greeting. Okay, and then what you do is you pull that into your entry file. Okay, and then back over in the SAS folder, I'm going to create a SAS file because I want to show you how this, how you can compile this or transpile this. So I'm just going to create some really basic SAS syntax here that you normally wouldn't be able to use in a CSS file. So I'm going to say my color equals okay. And then I'm going to create a sample class here, and then call my color. Okay, and then I'm going to use an inner class here, which normally you would do in SAS. Okay. Now, once you call this in, you're going to get an error here, right? So let's do that really quick. Now you'll see right here it says failed to compile, and it's telling you that you need a loader for SAS. Okay, and so just the same as before, you can really just search for these. Depending on what you need, you just type in, so I'll say SAS loader Webpack, and you can usually get a loader pretty fast that way. Just go to the GitHub page, and then we're going to install this. Now, as you notice here, it has 3 of them together, so we're just going to install that really quick. Go ahead and end that. npm install. So we have style loader, CSS loader, and Sass loader. And I'm going to save that in the dependencies here. Oh, and you also need to install Sass loader, or not, sorry, not Sass loader, node Sass, and you see that up here. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and apply this. So we'll go back over to the config, and I'm going to maximize this. But if this is a point of reference, actually I could just copy this really. So I'm going to go down and right underneath this one, paste that right in there. Okay, then what I'm going to do is run Webpack. Alright, and there you go. We have compiled everything. And so what I'm going to do now is go into our bundle file. And remember, we created this right here, so I'm going to search for these classes as well as our script file. So if we search greeting, you'll see here we have our greeting, and then if we search for inner class, you'll see here it converted it into CSS. That way the browser can read it rather than having it in Sass format. Okay, so there's a lot of loaders out there that you can use, but I just wanted to demonstrate a couple of the more popular ones. Okay, so the final step is to build everything, right? So what I'm going to do, if you remember back in our package.json file, the entry, the main file is index.js, so we'll create that. And I'm actually going to change this. I'm going to create a script here. Let's say start. It's going to be node index.js. Now I'm going to create a quick express server here. I'm not going to go into detail about this, but I'm just going to do it and you can follow along. Actually, before I do that, what I need to do is install Express. Okay, and I'm going to go back and go ahead and create this really quick. Alright, so since I didn't explain what this all is, basically I'm pulling in the Express package, and then I'm invoking an Express app, saving it to this const, and then path, which is a built-in node package that we can use for the file system, for the directory here. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking this directory, the dist folder, and I'm creating a static folder so that it can be accessed by the front end. Otherwise, here in the application, this bundle won't be accessible because it's not going to properly map. So what we do is just create a static directory here, and then I'm going to make sure that no matter what route people go to, they are redirected to the main index. So that's what I'm doing here is I'm sending the file, and then I'm listening on port 8080. So let's go ahead and run this. I'm going to say npm start. There we go, listening on 8080, and then let's give this a shot. Alright, and there you go, and that's how you completely build your application, and it's ready for deployment at this point. But that's all for this video. Like I said, there isn't, I didn't really show you how to actually use React and props and state and all that kind of stuff. I'll probably make another video at some other time showing you that, but I wanted to show you the basic setup for ReactJS and how easy that is to do with Webpack.